Here we are again, this time with Jason Brown from the Her Majesty's Prison Service, Pentonville, here in London. And Jason has very kindly agreed to talk to us about his work here within the prison with the inmates and also, I suppose, with the external people, victims, mostly. So, first of all, Jason, could you tell us a bit about yourself and also about Pentonville, because this is a very peculiar prison, it's very well known for different reasons.
Yeah, it's a very old prison. It's actually called the Model Prison because when it was designed in the early 1800s, it was a change to what was then very bad conditions in prisons and very kind of medieval. So it's based on a model which is like a cartwheel design. So there's a centre hub and then the wings go off from that. So basically it was that the officers could see directly down each wing from the centre to see what was going on.
So it was a bit of a more intelligent way to design a prison to make it easier for people to control a larger amount of inmates.
Yes, it was easy to control, but it was also supposed to be more kind of modern in the way that there was ventilation, there were windows in the cells, which before that there wasn't anything.
Luxury accommodation.
Luxury accommodation, yeah. It was actually a silent prison when it was first built. So prisoners weren't allowed to speak to the officers or to other prisoners. They used to wear masks across their face. It was basically kind of solitary confinement, although they were in with other prisoners. When they went on exercise yards, they weren't allowed to speak. So yeah, it wasn't good, but it was better than what they kind of had before, where you basically put in a hole in the ground and just left there. So
I can practically not imagine what it must have been before.
Yeah. So I think it was around 1842 that it was built, and from then on, it's kind of a model for other prisons. We're designed from here all over the world, really, to America and other countries. So yeah, that's why it's called the model. So a lot of the buildings the structures are still the same. It hasn't changed much, obviously. Lots of coats of paint on it over the years.
Yes.
So obviously, because it's a very old prison, it's very difficult to, try and maintain it. So we try our best. So it gets a lot of negative kind of reviews, but a lot of good work goes on here. And obviously, because it's right in the middle of a community, we have good links with the community as well.
Well, that's right. So it's right in the middle of this Haringey
Islington
area in London. It's quite curious.
It's very close to, you've got houses just the other side of the wall. You've got the main road there with buses going past. So yeah, it's right in the middle of the city, really. So we have one of the busiest receptions in the country with the courts that we supply to local Cat B prisons. So we send prisoners to Wood Green, Crown Courts.
So essentially, people that get sentences are sent here first to acclimatise to the prison environment.
Yes, so they'll come from all those the Crown Courts and the local courts as well, the magistrates, and then they'll come here on remand. And once they've been sentenced, then they'll be moved on to training prisons where they can access more kind of courses and stuff like that.
That's really interesting. What about yourself?
Yeah, I've worked here for quite a long while. I've done probably most jobs within the prison, from working on the wings as an officer, in security, and then as an orderly officer, which basically you run the jail on a daily basis, and at night you're kind of in charge of running the daily routine and everything. And then when I left that post, I went into offender management. And then kind of got some more skills, and now I've moved on to work for Haringey. They actually fund my post, and I work as part of the integrated offender management team. So
that would be the NOMS program.
It kind of replaced the old PPO, prolific offender scheme.
Okay.
So what it is, it's like a triangle. You've got the police, probation, the prison. We work very closely together with, they identify offenders who commit the most crimes, such as burglaries and robberies in their area, and we will put those prisoners onto those offenders onto a cohort where they're managed in the community and also in prison. So we try to get them as much help as we can to help them reduce their offending. So, housing, work, education.
So that's very forward-looking. You're looking at the root causes of that behaviour.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to address those.
Yeah. Also, one of the main ones obviously is drug use as well. So we try to get all those issues, help with them as much as we can. So upon release, it's a less risk, lower risk, and obviously when they're outside, they're closely supported by probation and special police officers who work under the IOM scheme to try and help them to stop offending.
And what's the connection with restorative justice?
The connection with restorative justice, I suppose, in the early part of 2014, I was approached by a police officer, Mark Davis, who was working as the lead on a pre-sentence project out of Wood Green Crown Court, and he contacted me through the police that I work with and asked if I could help him because they had no luck in getting into the prison or any prison to do conferences with offenders, obviously due to kind of staff shortages and the way things have gone over the last couple of years. It's very difficult to get, apart from like doing like a legal visit, and that environment is not really conducive to the
some people
justice
that have spoken with have actually said like some people within the service think that restorative justice is soft touch, and perhaps these people need to serve their sentences, and this is supposed to be meant as a punishment, right? And
I mean, like I say, I worked in the prison for a long while, and I suppose you do kind of there's lots of different projects and stuff that go on, and you kind of think, is that a bit soft? Is it going to work? It's not until I actually set in on a conference that I actually with a really prolific offender, one of them I've worked with for a long while, to see the impact it had and how it changed him. That's what made me want to get involved in restorative justice. So, I working with Mark, I kind of arranged with a prison that I could work with my offenders and offer it for their victims of their crime, and we had some real successes with the conferences that we did, and then obviously I asked if I could be trained as a facilitator and get involved in it more, and that's how I kind of got involved in restorative justice.
That's really interesting. What's the state of or the state of your work at the moment here within the prison? What is it that you do in terms of restorative justice? Do you get in touch with offenders, talk to them? Do you approach victims as well? Do you liaise with other agencies?
When we first started, when I first started working with Mark, when we first did our first conferences, I know that it's a victim-based project. But what we were aware of, that obviously it's not compulsory for offenders to take part in it, and obviously the understanding was that we contact the victim first. But what the concern was, if we could contact the victim and they wanted to take part in it, and then we spoke to the offender and he said no, then again it seemed like it was letting the victim down again or something else.
It is a big risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you raise expectations.
Yeah, so on the understanding, because I work very closely with the offenders under my umbrella, so I would approach them first and say, look, this is what RJ is. You're not going to get anything, it's not going to reduce your sentence in any way. By taking part, it's so you can say sorry, and it's a big thing to do for the victim. And in that way, then once we knew the offender was happy then to take part, we could then approach the victim, and then if they were in agreement, then we would go out and interview the victim first, and then come back and speak to the offender, and then set up the conference.
So, of course, as you say, this is victim focused. It's not victim initiated, I suppose, because it is initiated through the prison. But it is victim focused. But obviously, you need to engage with the offender as well.
Yes.
What's the sort of I wouldn't say response rate, but how have prisoners received this opportunity?
Again, it's prisoners will have perceptions of what restorative justice is, and you have to kind of be understanding that a lot of prisoners don't want to put a face to the crime, and they've got to be probably in a position in their life where they want to really change themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And until they're at that position where they want to actually do something to change, it's quite difficult to get them on board with RJ. We have had younger people do it, offenders do it, and we have had some older offenders do it, but it's just engaging them at that point in their life when they actually want to change themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when you get the real successes with RJ.
And of course, for that, the key element is the relationship between the offender and the prison officer.
Yeah, I think the benefit of the offenders I work with is because they're in and out, and I suppose like revolving door, because of their drug use, they go out, they commit crime, and they're back in quite a lot on like a revolving door. So I've known a lot of the offenders for many years, so I have a really good kind of relationship with them. They know me really well, and I know them really well, and
they trust you.
They trust me, and that kind of helps when I tell them something. They know that I'm not putting anything on. This is the way it's going to be, and you do need that kind of trust with the offender.
Mm-hmm.
To try, and it does help to put across what RJ means. Like, it's not about you, but although it's not about them, they will get benefits from it in actually facing up to what they've done, and that's the kind of way I went down that road with them. So.
I see, and of course it is for the victim as well. How do victims react to being invited? Do conferences take place here in HMP's Pentonville?
Yeah, what we did was, obviously, it's quite a daunting place to look at for anybody. But, if you've never been in a prison before, and then...
I have never, I swear.
And then you come to somewhere, as foreboding as Pentonville, it can be quite a scary place, especially for someone who's been a victim of crime as well. So we decided to engage with the chaplaincy here, and they've agreed that we could use the chapel, mm-hmm. which is like a huge chapel at the top of the prison. Although it's inside the prison, it's not actually in the prison.
It feels separate.
It feels very separate. It's very calming, very quiet, and we thought that would be the best environment for the conferences. Mm-hmm. So we held them there, and they were really successful. And getting the victims in first and showing them around, give them a cup of tea, make them feel comfortable with the mm-hmm. environment they're in, kind of put them at ease coming into a prison. So yeah, that's the way it works.
You have mentioned before that you have full support from the people you work with, and you also have funding, which is quite an odd situation because a lot of people find that yes, RJ is well accepted, but then at the time, when it comes to putting the money where your mouth is, that's a bit more difficult. What are your expectations for the future? What do you expect to achieve with this? How do you think this is going to go, and what would you like to happen?
Yeah, I mean, some I know there are restorative justice projects in some prisons around the country. But obviously, in a busy London local jail, especially in London at the moment, we're under a lot of pressure with making financial cuts like any government department. So it comes about staffing at the end of the day and being able to facilitate more than just the basics. Mm-hmm. So as I'm already funded by Haringey to work as part of their IM team, I've also now been given I'm fully funded now, which came from MOPAC, so it's and that was for restorative justice solely. Mm-hmm. So I can kind of split my role to do my IOM work, but also to expand the restorative justice, not just with my offenders, but with a larger kind of group of offenders within the prison. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping to kind of expand it, and hopefully get some other staff trained up as facilitators mm-hmm. at some point, so that we can carry out conferences on a regular basis. And the governor here is very happy to support that. So,
well, I'm very happy for that. And this is all very interesting. I really hope that things go well. I think they will. It looks like they have support and you have funding as well, and then you have the passion for it as well, which you seem to have. I'm in no doubt that it will go okay. So thank you very much, Jason, for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you for receiving me here in Pentonville prison. It is quite daunting, but it is interesting. It has a very interesting history. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.